Good day, jabronis, and now you know why I'm not the one doing the intros. Unfortunately, Verd is sick and he can't be with us this week, but we do have a very capable replacement. Would you like to say hi?
Sorry, GBA fans, it's Xilicks here, and I'll be filling in this week.
Basically Verd is sick, and that's why there's also a delay. We were hoping that he'd be well enough to record this, but it's just not going to happen. So me and Xilicks are going to take this week, and I hope that we'll be able to do a good enough job without Verd. Anyway, let's just jump straight into the rankings with the bottom 6, which me and Verd completely agreed on. I don't know if Xilicks had anything different to say, but let's start off from the bottom and then work our way up with the Columbus Chew, who are 0-5. They had another loss this week, and again, it was a pretty resounding loss. There's not really much more to say that we haven't already said. He's just not been playing very well throughout the season, and I'm disappointed, and I hope that it'll improve, but generally, I'm not optimistic, and I don't really think he's got any shot of making playoffs anymore, so I'm not going to talk too much about him. Do you have anything you would like to say?
Yeah, I mean, other than what was kind of obvious from watching the match from this week, there were some minor misplays where he could have cleaned up the differential a bit, but outside of that, playoffs is not looking very good for him as he hasn't picked up a win yet, and his differential is by far the lowest.
Well, it's one thing to just say that he can pick up his differential. His differential doesn't matter right now. He's 0-5,
right? Yeah.
20. Differential's not where it's important. The important thing is now winning, and I don't really think he's going to be able to do that, especially because in his conference, in order to make the wild card position, the lowest ranked team that he'd have to get would be, and this is assuming that everyone massively chokes and loses, and I don't even think it's possible with the way the matchups go, but he'd need to win another 4 games this season, and I just don't see that happening. We're already at the halfway point nearly, and he's not won a game. I'm just not very confident he's going to make it. Someone who I think has been playing a bit better is the team we've got directly above him in Victorian Shadows. Necro has been playing better than the Columbus Chew this season, but he's still 0-5. He's still not doing as well, and I feel like this week, if anything, he took a step backwards. I feel like this week he gave up the momentum easy and he just didn't play as well as he previously did, and maybe that's just John played better than his previous opponents did. But it was disappointing. I felt like he was improving, and now it's just another step back, and he's in basically the same position. He's got 6 less differential to worry about, so he's probably not going to be the team coming last, but it is a concern, and I don't really think that he's going to make playoffs either, to be frank. And with teams that have a less chance of making playoffs, me and Verd, we were going to just not talk that long about them, just explain briefly if there's any movement, but more often than not in the upcoming weeks we'll be seeing us talking less and less about the bottom ranked teams. So yeah, anything you want to cover on the Necro point?
Yeah, I generally have to agree, like, these bottom teams they're going to have to get extremely lucky and definitely play a lot better if they do want to see any improvement, at least just coming up from the bottom. But yeah, what were you going to say?
Sorry, the one thing I will say that is slightly in his favor is that his division, technically, it would be easier to come back from his position in his division. In terms of the highest ranked team is 3-2, all the teams are 3-2 in it, which is kind of difficult for him. But technically, he's got a better shot, I think, than Coach Zed does. But yeah, I'll let you continue from there.
But one point I did want to make about the match versus John was John really just had a lot of defensive responses to anything he had offensively. So anytime he tried to get momentum and try to have pressure, he just got shut down right away.
Which does come down a bit to the prep and to the drafting.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's essentially what happens sometimes. Do you want to give your thoughts on the Crimson performance?
So I think his only win so far has been against Coach Z, if I'm correct, yeah?
Yep.
So, unfortunately, like, while it is a win, it's not a very big win, and he hasn't been doing very well. I believe all of his mons are, like, negative differential, except for the Thunderous, which is doing very well.
Thunderous is actually the kill leader.
Yeah, it is doing very well, but that's the only mon on his team that is doing well, and unfortunately, kills are not enough to secure those wins. I think if he was playing more offensively with stuff like the Beedrill and the Infernape, but I mean, he hasn't been doing too well, and he's kind of in the same boat as Coach Z. Obviously a bit ahead because he does have the win over him and a little bit better differential. But as you mentioned from before, the conference he is in is going to be very tough.
Yeah, it's not easy to come back from that. And the wild card positions, they're going to have to beat out Aaron, they're going to have to beat out Joey, they're going to have to beat out Gio, and they're going to have to beat out Lars. And they just don't see those guys all slipping from the leads that they have. So yeah, that's why the bottom three teams are where they are. Next up, me and Verd actually agreed, which I kind of thought was unlikely because I thought that I was placing them very low. But we've got Wolfie here, and I don't know if you'd have Wolfie anywhere else, but generally, while the Draco miss did suck for Wolf, I don't think it would have changed that much in the end of the game, given how the rest of the battle went, and I do just think that Chimp had control. Throughout most of the battle, I thought that Chimp had the control, not through the battle, through the entire phase from prep to the end of the battle, because he knew that Wolf wouldn't bring the Trick Room because he had the Mega Camera up threats and he had his own Trick Room threats, and he knew that Webs would be a good matchup here. He played very well around the Florges, around the Sticky Webs on his side of the field, around the Garchomp. Yes, the Draco miss sucked on the Victini, but in terms of how the battle was going and how the battle actually went, I genuinely don't think that the result would have been any different if the Draco had hit. So, given that I feel like Wolfie had already been slipping, I would move him down one position because I did think that Asta played well. I'm more surprised by Verd's selection, and I'm annoyed that he's not here to explain it himself because I feel like he would have done a better job of explaining it than me. But he also moved Milwaukee down 3 full positions from 10th to 13th. Probably in agreement with me that Wolfie's just been slipping the last couple of weeks, but yeah, I hope to see more from him because obviously we know that Wolf is an excellent competitor. And again, it was against Chimpact, and Chimpact isn't exactly the easiest guy to go up against. But still, I do hope that he bounces back from this, and we get to see the real Wolf in action.
Yeah, I definitely like to see the world champion show test his mettle, I guess. But maybe he could be up 1 point. I think anywhere between the 13 and 11 spot could kind of be where he fits. But yeah. I can see why he's down at 13.
There are definite groups in this that are not the 6 that you see on the screen. These 6 are not in the same level. There's the bottom 2 or 3, and then there's for me it's about 10 to 13. I could put any of them anywhere. Maybe 11 to 13 would be fairer. But these are kind of splitting hairs at this point, unfortunately.
Yeah, it's going to be hard to nitpick some of the certain positions, but as the season goes on, a lot more of the coaches are, it looks like, going to solidify their positions, whether it be the top and the bottom, but the middle is going to be really where stuff shakes up. So I feel like he could probably work his way back up a bit, as he hasn't had too bad of games, but his losses have been relatively big, especially this game where he lost 4-0.
Yeah. I agree with that. Asta. Now, Asta did lose this week, and he did lose to Gator, which might make it weird that I moved him up instead of keeping the positions the same. But generally, this week, I felt like Asta played well. He made the game very close. He made good plays. He read the Crobat coming in, he rock slided, and he put himself in the position where if the Toxic had hit on the Lopunny, he probably would have been able to win the game. And if he puts himself in positions like that, I'm not going to be the one to say, no, I'm putting you back down because you lost. Because in the end, if you've got a 90% chance to win a game, that's a 90% chance. That's a decent shot. And I do think that he would have had a very good opportunity to win, but for the Toxic miss. And I don't think that keeping him below Wolf would have really reflected how well both of them played this week. So yeah, I moved Asta up 1. I think Verd agreed with me. But yeah, generally I'm more forgiving for losses that are almost entirely due to hacks, although that's kind of why we've got Big Deal or No Big Deal. But right. Yeah, Asta, he's been improving from his early season stutter, shall we say.
Yeah, he's definitely been improving. I know the Scolipede set is kind of a meme, but I think the Scolipede could have done very well this week. It was able to get the big rock slide in on the Crobat. maybe if he didn't lose it right there, we could have seen a different game, but I believe he wasn't expecting the Hidden Power Rock to come from the Superior. There was a crit, and
I thought you were talking about the Crobat for a second. I was like, yeah, that's not how the game went, was it?
No, the Superior had the HP Rock.
Yeah, I believe it was the Ockerberry for HP Fire, but yeah, if it was, but I don't work on different things like if it was a different set. If we're talking about in-game hacks, I'm happy to Theoremon, but especially
well,
late
it did
game,
crit, and I believe they said it was a damage roll had it not crit. So
yes, true. So yeah, but maybe we would have seen a different game if Scolpede had been around to check the Mega Altaria late game. But yeah, he did better this week, so I moved him up.
Yeah, his playing was definitely better overall.
And the team we've got above him has been improving since being rock bottom for the first several weeks, and that is the Melbourne Rotums. Aaron, he's been doing significantly better in the last couple of weeks. Would you like to start off with him, given that I think I've started on all of them and have just been talking over you?
So he had a bit of a tough matchup here, as Breloom
awful matchup.
Kind of just gets kills constantly, but like he lost his Pelipper right away, which not very good to the 5-hit Bullet Seed, although I do believe it would have been a 2-hit KO either way, unless he got 2 hits.
It would have been
twice.
Unless it was two hits.
Yeah. So other than that, though, I mean, the good things I can say about this match is after there was the roll which allowed the Kartana to get its substitute up, Aaron was able to keep his Kingdra at high enough health so that the Breloom didn't just decimate him, which turned the match into a potential 5-3-0 to a 1-0. And that's impressive, honestly, because had he made wrong plays, it would have been just a total wipeout with the Breloom.
Kind of annoyed that I let you go first there, because literally my notes were I felt like he played really, really impressively to bring a horrible matchup to as close as a 1-0, so kind of just stole my thunder there. No, he did play really well against a really tough opponent, bringing a horrible matchup to a 1-0. I don't think if you've got a dedicated rain team, there's a team you'd enjoy facing less than a Breloom Mega Venusaur team. I just don't think there's another matchup. Like maybe a Torn T if you throw.
Yeah, I was just thinking if there was like Hurricane spam outside of Pelipper, then yeah, that definitely would help with that. But
I was meaning on the other side, as in if you were with the rain team and you had to face Mega Venusaur Torn T.
Oh but, yeah, that would be even worse.
And it's made only worse by the fact that his Gardevoir resist, his Fairy resist, has 39 base Spadef. So I feel like he played incredibly impressively to bring it as close as it ended up being. It's just a shame that, frankly, the matchup was so awful that I don't really think he had that much of a chance going into the week. But his play was impressive enough that despite losing, I was once again willing to move it. I actually kept him the same, but Verd moved him up one position. And I wasn't willing to move him up because the teams above him, they are, as I was talking about with the levels thing in terms of this, 2 groups of 3 at the bottom. The next group of 3 exists above him as well. Although I'd call, group of 3 is close enough. So let's move on to that slide, and this is actually where we started disagreeing in the power rankings. He has Gator at 10th. He hates Gator, of course, and I have San Francisco Giants moving down a position despite winning. And I feel like that's the one that's probably going to get the most odd responses, I'll say, in terms of people being confused as to why I'll do it. So I'll try and explain why exactly I decided that I'd move them down. I did, first of all, I do think he played well. I think it was a good win, and I like the fact that Rabombi got 3 kills. I have a personal liking of when Rabombi does well. I like them on, and I'm happy to see it do well. But for a number of reasons. First of all, despite being a 4-0 win, it was against the bottom-ranked team who have lost by consistently heavy margins this season. And I feel like of the wins, I feel like Gator's... I had Gator above him already, but but it was kind of similar in terms of how good I feel the wins were, although Gator, of course, did get a little bit lucky. And Joey, I felt like, played really, really well to beat one of my top 5 competitors. So kind of just by default, I moved Geo down. It could have been him or Gator, if I'm being honest, but I kind of feel like Gator did play well, in particular in his endgame management in terms of dealing with the potential of Roar to stop his sweep by sacking off the Heatran before he went into the Altaria. And he didn't know that there was a Toxic, but I do like the fact that he did play according to, well, Roar is his only real way of stopping me now, so I'll sack off the Heatran and then I'll win. I did like the fact that he did account for that and try and manage the game. So because of that, and it's a slight difference, but because of that, I did end up moving Geo down and moving Gator. I moved Gator down as well, but moved Joey up too, and I'll get to Joey in a minute. Would you like to just talk about the Geo and Gator situations then, I guess?
So with Gator, I definitely agree with the reasoning of keeping him above Geo, because even though some would argue that he only won this game because of hacks, had he played differently in the end game, he would have lost because of either a Roar or something else like you had mentioned. But yeah, I think he played
it was
incredibly
good endgame
well.
management despite the hacks as well.
Right. Because had the Toxic landed and had he lost the match because of that, he at least would have lost doing the best that he could have in that situation that he was put in.
Exactly.
But yeah, I mean, Geo did pick up a win this week, which was good to see. He's sort of pulling his way back into the wild card potential. He's not too far off, I believe, so he definitely has a chance of making playoffs.
I believe he's 1 win behind. I'll just check that while you're continuing talking.
But yeah, so if he is in range of wildcard right now, or if he will be in future weeks if he's able to pick up more wins, we may see him either both climb the rankings or climb the potential playoffs, because I believe he's number 2 in his division, but his division is definitely like the worst differential and win-loss wise so far.
Yeah, his division is MV, him, and then Crimson and Coach Zed.
Yeah.
So not the most impressive of divisions when you've got things like Jolt, Lars, Joey, and Aaron, and things like that, who are in his conference. And right now, he's directly competing against all 3 of them, actually.
Yeah,
he's
they
tied
are
with record.
pretty much
he's tied
neck and
with
neck.
record for the lowest in their division in terms of the Melbourne Rotoms. But he's only 1 win and 4 differential behind Lars, who is currently in the wildcard position. So it is entirely plausible that he could come back and make playoffs. So yeah. I guess I'll move into Joey there then. Joey, I feel like this was a really, really solid performance from Joey, and what we've been expecting of him most of the season. He just got the early game momentum with a good read, getting in the Salazzle, knowing that the Gengar was either not going to stay in on the Rhydon or was probably going to go for HP Grass, just to try and break it down. Probably not HP Water, just due to the way that Joey's team is set up. In terms of he's got better water resistance than grass resistance, I do believe. But yeah, and of course I'm biased. He named the Salazzle after me, and it got 4 or 5 kills. So
4, yeah.
I did move Joey up quite a bit. I feel like, but more importantly, this was a win against one of my top 5 teams, who I had thought was in a level above the other competitors. And to see this sort of performance from Joey, I was really impressed and really pleased to see how well he was doing, especially in the matchup. Reading the situations, knowing that the Crocodile wasn't going to be max HP Scar, going for the second overheat, managing the Tailwind situation towards the end, which if he didn't get every turn right, he could very well have lost. And just playing generally as well as we know that Joey can, and as well as I enjoy seeing him play. So yeah, just a very solid, a very solid win against a very solid competitor means that I've moved Joey up several positions, because his win against Lars is more impressive to me than Geo's win against Coach Zed or the Gators win against Asta, just due to the positions of all the teams, how they've done so far this season.
Yeah, I agree with moving Joey up, mainly because he's kind of moving away from some of those sets that have been, potentially causing him to lose games with really predictable things like a lot of rest mons and Gyarados and Zygarde being kind of repetitive. But this week...
It's no longer the same team with one different mon.
Yeah, but this week, we saw Salazzle being very offensive. He brought it in at the right times, making the correct play many times. And we even saw that, I believe, in it was the previous week or 2 weeks ago, where he was making, again, very good plays with the Salazzle. So if he's able to if he's able to have this more offensive play style where he's constantly pressuring his opponent and making the correct plays, then he's going to be doing very well for the rest of the season if he's able to keep it up.
Well, he was able to get the momentum early on, and once he had the momentum, I feel like he had the knowledge of what to do in the position. The problem is getting the momentum in the first place, and if Joey can do that consistently, I think he's going to win consistently, because getting the momentum is one of the most important things when you've got a playstyle like he does. So, yeah. I was really impressed by him. The team I have one above him is actually the team that he beat in terms of the Borussia Dortmund. Also, it is Borussia because it's Borussia Dortmund. I don't think I've said that so far this season, and I wanted to for a while. Yeah, Lars, he didn't play poorly. He just did give up the momentum, and it can be very difficult to recover from that position, especially given that, as I said, Joey did perform really well once he did get the momentum, and he did end up pushing through and just beating Lars in the end. But I wasn't willing to move him down too far because I do feel like he has played well this season. So, yeah, I wasn't willing to move him down below Joey because of his loss, given how impressive I feel like he has been throughout most of the season.
And part of the thing with this loss as well is it wasn't a very big loss, only 2-0. But one thing that's important to note, is from his end game, he mentioned that had he made a couple plays slightly differently, there was a chance he could have won, but it wasn't a chance in his favor. It just would have been a little bit of a cleaner matchup from his point of view. But he has had a good season, and he also has a very good team, and this did take him a little bit lower on his individual division, but it's not knocking him out of the race at all, and he's definitely still going to be a competitor.
I actually feel like he stayed in the exact same place in his division just due to the strength of his differential. Yeah, he stayed in second despite this.
Yeah.
He's obviously
it's pulling Joey a little bit closer, yeah.
Yes, of course. I do get what you mean, just the words that you used.
Right, yeah.
Asshole sometimes. Anyway, we'll move up into the top 6 now. And Lars is joined by the guy who was right above him last week. I've actually moved both of them down too. And that is Mono, who lost this week versus Tom. So I'll let you start this one again. I'm starting too many of them. I feel like I'm rambling on way too much here. Sorry.
So I mentioned on the weekly recap about this matchup where it was kind of justice for Tom because Mono has swept him in the past in a very similar fashion to this, with like Jirachi and a couple other things that both of them mentioned. So this was interesting to see Komodo actually get a huge sweep, because if you look at Mono's team, not really anything can like stand up to it without like resist berries and stuff. So
yes, it was a very solid prep on Tom's end. The only opportunity really that Mono had to make a different play was to Toxic instead of Taunt with Gliscor, but I do completely get why he would Taunt instead of Toxic. Lum is a more than reasonable set to expect in that scenario. So yeah, his performance meant that I moved him down, but again, I'm not willing to move him down too low given how well he's played this season. But I do feel like the teams that I moved above him have played, generally speaking, a bit better. So yeah, I'll move on to John now, and this game, I feel, should be shown to anyone who doesn't think that T-Spikes are the best hazard in the draft format, and I'm including rocks there. I feel like T-Spikes are single-handedly the most important thing to have as a threat on your team, because when they are used correctly, it can give you so much help. And I think that the T-Spikes were responsible for a kill and halfway responsible for another one as well in terms of the T-Tar. It was just an incredibly solid showing, because once he got up the T-Spikes, he was able to then just maintain momentum. You mentioned earlier he had defensive answers for everything that Necro threw at him.
Everything.
It was an incredibly solid performance. The reason I didn't move him up to number 4 is because, it was due to the strength of his opponent, who was 0-4, now is 0-5, whereas, of course, Tom, who most people would, I think they can see that now, yeah, of course, because it's 3 now. Tom did play against Mono and won, so I feel like Tom's victory was more impressive because of that. But John played really, really well, and Bird actually disagrees with me. Bird put John above Tom. So that's interesting, I guess. He did think that the win was solid enough and just impressive enough and dominating enough, because I don't think that I mentioned that enough. He just didn't give Necro much of a sniff. It was just very impressive and very, very well done, and I hope to see more, because this is the John that I want to see in his final season. A really impressive one who can go on and make playoffs and potentially win the whole thing.
Yeah, I do agree, I think, with Verd a little bit more, having John above Tom. And the main reason for this is because while Tom did have a huge win, it was mainly due to like a big sweep. So it's not like he did any impressive playing. He just had really good building. But I think John had
building
both.
is an aspect of it, though, isn't it? In terms of the draft league, building is a pretty important aspect of.
Well, I was just about to say though that John had good building and good playing, because with the toxic spikes, it basically allowed him to, every time Steve-O brought in something that was offensive like the Diggersby or the Mega Alakazam, John just goes into his defensive response, and it doesn't matter if he loses momentum on that turn, if Necro decides to double or U-turn, because everything is taking that poison damage. So he just gets to sit on the field and make safe plays, and even when something like the Delmise started to pick up a little bit of momentum for Necro, it didn't really matter, because in the end game, he was able to, hold his ground and just sit there while the Tyranitar got worn down. It wasn't allowed to set up. The Alakazam was picked off by the Pursuit plus Poison, and it just generally was a good performance by John. So, I don't know. I think it could be swapped either way, with either him above Tom or Tom above him, but...
It is also important to mention that when they played earlier, Tom did come out with the win in terms of Tom v John. They need to have less similar sounding names. I almost said it around twice now. But yeah, so I feel like that also played a part of the impact in terms of, in the head-to-head matchup, Tom did win in that matchup.
Yeah, I'll give you that. I'll give you that. He did pick up the win there. So.
But I'll talk a bit more about Tom now because, well, I mean, I guess it's a good enough segue. But yeah, it was impressive building on his end, and he just had a really, really strong Mon in the matchup that he played well and executed his game plan well, and he got 6 kills. So yeah, Kamo did what Kamo does and did really well. It's not enough to move him into my top 3 or Verd's top 3, which have stayed relatively stable, although there is one change in mine that there isn't in his, and we'll just cut to that slide now. So you can see we've got Envy as our third. Both of us agree on that. We actually disagree on our top 2 this week, and I would have liked to have seen him here for that, because I feel like his reaction would have been more interesting, because I know that he kind of disagrees with me quite strongly on this. So that's unfortunate, but we can cover that next week, hopefully. Anyway, Envy is our number 3, generally just because he's got a loss. I think that's pretty much it at this stage.
Yeah, I think that's got a loss, fair enough reason.
It's definitely not fair to put him down in the category below this, but I think that's solidly third instead of being one of the top 2 undefeated teams. Envy's playing really well. Just continue doing it, and when the other teams sniff up, you can have the chance to reclaim your throne. So yeah, Envy's doing really well, but not as well as our top 2, who are both undefeated. The 2 prominent forces in each conference, Chimpact and Jolt. I have Chimpact first and Jolt second. Bird has it the other way around. Honestly, with this one, it is kind of a flip of a coin, and I won't lie, it was so close that I decided on it largely based on it's more interesting if we disagree in more positions. For me, it is literally, I could flip a coin and make my rankings on which to put first and which to put second. So I really cannot separate these 2 teams. They both played incredibly well the entire season. Just in the way that they played as well. I have watched their games, and I don't think I can remember a situation in any of their games from week 1 to now where I have felt like either team were in a losing position. I can't remember a situation where either team was in a situation where they were not the ones who knew what was going to happen and knew what was going to work in the match. And yeah, I'll also justify putting Jolt a little bit lower this week as well, based on the fact that in this game, this was a matchup win. And drafting is part of this, and it is impressive, and it's worth mentioning and paying respect to. But the strength of his matchup was so strong, and it ended up only being a 1-0, that Chimpac's matchup, which was a harder matchup in my opinion, against pretty much the same quality of opponent in terms of I had Milwaukee and Melbourne right next to each other. Both of them very, very impressive VGC players. I feel like just because of the differences in the matchup and the differences in the results, I feel like Chimpak did play better this week. So, yeah, generally speaking, it was another solid win from both of our top two. But I do feel like Jolts was a little less impressive this week, especially compared to his last week when he did, of course, beat Envy, which is kind of unfair for me to put him down after that, but still. It is so hard to separate these two teams that I've gone with the team that were better this week, as well as what I already said, in terms of just, it's more interesting for everyone watching if we don't just agree on literally everything, so yeah.
Yeah, two things I want to add to that. So the first thing was, you mentioned that you didn't think that Chimpak ever had a point where he might have lost. I think the only time I can recall was Chimp versus Gator, whenever it was the Crobat and the Superior that both had the HB ground. That was a really good game and really close down to the wire, and I think Gator kind of caught Chimp off guard.
I do feel like Chimpak generally had control throughout that game, but yeah, I can see what you're saying there. That is a potential position, the closest he's been, definitely.
But then adding on to generally like not knowing where to put them, I think the best way to describe it is so far Chimp has, he's been playing better overall, but I think Jolt has beaten tougher opponents. Like he's beat Envy, and most of the people in Jolt's division have had some pretty good records. They've been tossing up and down between the Melbourne Rotoms, the Bronx Bearticks, and the Borussia Donphan, while in the Sizzlers division, it's like Aster, who's been falling behind, and then Gator, who arguably has won some games due to hacks, and Wolfie, who hasn't been having a very great start to the season. But that's not to take anything away from Chimpak, because he has been playing very well.
Yeah, exactly. He's been playing very well. Jolt's been playing very well too. We can't take that away from him.
Oh yeah, of course.
And this is the one where, frankly, as I said, I could toss a coin and base this on that. These two are so close, and they've been so impressive this season. And given that they're in opposite conferences, I feel like this could very well end up being the matchup that we see in the final, because both of them have been playing so impressively so far.
That would be an epic final if they both go undefeated and then they face each other in the finals. That would absolutely just make the season. It would be amazing.
I'm not sure if they play before then, because there is one more outer conference week, isn't there? Or two more? Only one.
I'm not sure if they do. I could check quickly though.
I'll check now. I've got the doc open. And they do not. They do not. So yeah, we can't see the clash of the two undefeated teams. But, oh well. Yeah, I think that's going to wrap up the power rankings this week. Thank you once again to Xilicks for stepping in and helping me on very short notice.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah, so thank you for that. And me and Verd will be back next week for the power rankings at the correct time as well. Sorry for the delay once again. And I do hope that this was good enough, even though, of course, it is a bit rushed because... We're literally recording this, I'm going to edit it, and then it's going to literally go up. So hopefully it's not been too much because of that. And yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed, and we'll see you next time. Peace.
See ya.